Welcome, everybody, and thank you, Alex, for joining me. Today, I'm talking to Alex Brogan, not yet named wine company, which is a great name, by the way. A little bit long, I suppose, for search engines and website names, but nevertheless, the name itself is brilliant. So welcome, Alex. It's great
Thank
to
you for
have
having
you.
me.
And, I'm tasting your wine, first time ever, which is, I thank you for that, because it's a lovely label. I know the winery a little bit, but I assume you will tell me many things about it very shortly.
Yeah.
And
And
then,
apologies for the long name for the business. So it was never actually the intention that this would be the name of the business. It was just early days. We had to fill out a form for something. I don't know, register somewhere, company's house maybe, and we didn't have a name. And the idea was that our members would vote for what the name of the company would be.
yeah,
So we went with that, and then it stuck, and we just never changed it.
I suppose it's actually the most unique name for a wine business. So yeah, let's dive in. Before we do that, let me run my epic intro. So it's only 4 seconds. So let's go. See, you couldn't do it. That's
I
it.
didn't
Yeah.
get the time. That was quicker than I thought it was going to happen. I couldn't get the screw cap off. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
All right,
anyway, pour a little bit more and cheers.
Cheers.
Right. First of all, I would say, tell me about yourself. Tell me about the project. Tell me about the wine I'm drinking, because I'm curious as well, and then we can crack on.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I'll probably get to the wine later and
Okay.
hopefully not get to myself at all. I just want to talk about the business. That's what I like to do. And then that's kind of what I've been doing for the past, 2 years now, maybe a year and a half. It's actually not been that long, but we've kind of made 6 or 7 wines, and perhaps another couple coming shortly. But the whole concept, just in case people don't know, is a bit unusual. The way we make wine is that we sell it way before it's made, before grapes are even picked. So it's kind of like a pre-en-primeur type thing. And obviously, then the people who buy the wine, you have to buy a case or 6 bottles, and you don't get the wine until it's ready, obviously. So in the meantime, I have to provide you with lots of entertainment and fun and education and stuff like that. So what happens is, if you buy a case, you get the chance to vote on every winemaking decision that we make throughout the whole process. So starting with, it depends on vintage to vintage, it varies, but depending on, you can choose sometimes whether it's red or white to begin with, and then the grape, the vineyard site, sometimes whether it's high altitude or low altitude, and then through all the winemaking process, how long do we macerate for? Do you want them in barrels or in stainless steel? Fining, filtration, everything we do it every time we have a decision that affects stylistic, like what it's going to taste like. We put that vote out to our members with all the pros, the cons, the risks, impacts on tastes, and they vote, and we follow the majority. So you kind of make your own wine, and it's not just limited to the winemaking as well. It's also that the label design, the music we play to the barrels sometimes, and then the name of the wine, which is why the name of the company is pivoting. So now we tell people that it's called Not Yet Named Wine Co. rather than Not Yet Named Wine Co. But that's not truthful. That's just people name the wine and not the company anymore.
Fair enough. And you talking about we here, because I'm only talking to you at this moment. And if anyone have a look at your very long named, not yet named wine company website, if they type it in, they will see 2 people on it. The other person is Manuel. So how did you guys meet?
Yeah, so Manuel, we met at Plumpton College. So we were both studying viticulture and enology, and joined, I think, 2 years ago now. Oh, sorry, 2.5 years ago now. Yeah, and that's how we met. So we were studying together. So we are both viticulture students, although he is continuing with his studies. I intend to, but the business got a little bit too big, so not that it's massive, but it was taking up too much of my time, and I wasn't really focusing too much on studies.
Behind your wall is, behind that wall, actually, there's like 100 people working, or 200 on their laptops.
Many, the whole fact. It's not even a wall; it's just like one of those screens, and if a green screen, No, so it's only me now, sort of working on the business, while Manuel focuses on his studies. But yeah, we met at Plumpton, and his family are from 𝘂𝑓𝑨𝑒, so they're the wine the producer from the bottle you've got there. We just devised this concept in the canteen one afternoon. Like, if you ever meet anyone from 𝘂𝑓𝑨𝑒 or Manuel himself, they're really generous, warm people and friendly. And we just got talking. It's probably Christmas in the first year, and he just said, "Yeah, come to 𝘂𝑓𝑨𝑒 and you can be an intern for us." And then straight away I was like, "Oh, can we make our own wine?" You know, and that's how the whole conversation started. Like, can we make our own wine? And he was a bit like, "Oh, I'm not sure." Like, they're a big operation at 𝘂𝑓𝑨𝑒, so they don't let students just loose
What
randomly.
do you mean if I just knock on the door and say, like, can I make my own wine now? It's like they're gonna say no. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd say no, and actually, I think it made it extra difficult that Manuel's the son of Luis, because he was like, it'll have to be a brilliant idea. There's no way we can't let you just make a wine, because everybody here wants to make a wine, so it needs to be a really good idea. So yeah, once they'd agreed to let me be an intern for the summer, we went over just to see the place in April with this plan of trying to convince his dad and 𝘂𝑓𝑨𝑒 to let us run a project to make our own wine.
Yeah.
And I guess how the whole thing started was, you're right, like, you can't just knock on the door and say, "Can I make a wine?" However, if you knock on the door and say, "We've already sold the wine, can we make it here?" They'll be like, "Well, yeah, of course." So from a winery perspective, there's no risk on them at all.
Yeah.
They, depending on how much we sell, we only make that much, so there's no like excess for them to worry about. They can have the money up front if they want it to fund it all, so we can rent the equipment, we can buy the grapes. That's not a problem. And then the biggest bonus for wineries as well is that throughout that whole year, as we're talking to people and people are voting, we talked about 𝘂𝑓𝑨𝑒 every week. So there's quite a few customers in the UK who may or may not have known about 𝘂𝑓𝑨𝑒, but got a bit much fuller understanding of how they work, the wines they make, what the place looks like. You know, it's a beautiful place, and yeah, people learn a lot about 𝘂𝑓𝑨𝑒 through, and our partner wineries, just through being part of the process.
I was gonna say, actually, because the winery itself is on the label as a, as a cross project, if you can say that. But the winery itself is also, they have wines available in the UK as well, because I tasted them, I sold them in the past as well. So it's a good way for them to actually sort of market themselves a little bit as well. It's free marketing in a way. Actually, you pay for the marketing and you work for them, and that doesn't make any sense to you.
My whole model is unraveling. It's unraveling.
Sorry.
But no, it's how we got our foot in the door. You know, like two students who've never made wine before need to offer a lot in order to let someone do that. So and they were really good to us in the whole process. They let us do everything. There were no restrictions on that wine. You know, like any equipment, or we had to pick the vineyards. We could pick when we wanted. Like, everything was our choice. Which, you know, normally when you make a wine, there are some restrictions, but they were like, "We love the concept. Do what you want."
How many bottles of wine did you produce from this vintage?
So we made about 600 of each. So there's two wines. Yeah. So actually, the wine that you've got there isn't the members' wine. So the way that wine came about was, so the only way to get the members.
Is that the Dictator wine then?
Exactly. That is a Dictator wine. So
you are ruining my show now, because I have to press the button and it comes up. Yeah, there you go.
No, that's seamless.
Yeah, seamless. Yeah,
exactly. So we make two wines every vintage. The first time we did it was kind of accidental, because we were making our democratic wine, and we only make what we sell. Partially to be like a kind of exclusivity type thing. Like, the people who've signed up in advance, who've kind of sacrificed their cash 18 months before it arrives, kind of deserve to be the only people who get that wine. So we don't sell the members' wine. We only sell the Dictator wine. And the way that this Dictator wine came out originally was, we did make more volume in terms of literage than we needed. And we had what was it? We had 1 barrel of the wine in chestnut. We had 1 barrel of it in old French oak, and then we had the rest of it in stainless steel.
Okay.
And then when the members voted on the final blend that they wanted, and actually tasted the wine in barrel, we took over a group of about 20 people on a school trip to 𝘂𝑓𝑨𝑒. So they tasted the wine in the different vessels and came up with their own blend that they wanted, which included most of the French oak, all of the chestnut, and then a little bit of the stainless steel. So we ended up having a fair bit of the stainless steel wine left over separately. The original intention of that was that it would go into a Solari blend somewhere else, but it was really good. So we thought, well, why not? Why don't we just bottle it and keep it and try and sell it as like almost like a marketing tool to get it into shops and restaurants and bars, so that people can see the concept, see the name, see the brand, and then be more encouraged to sign up to future wines. And we'll have it for events and things like that.
Yes.
You know.
So technically, the democratic wines are the ones which are for members, and the Dictator wines are the ones which for anyone who is willing to purchase from you. I assume the sampler in Islington, for example, has it, and probably a few other places as well.
Yeah, and then obviously on the website as well, you could buy it directly from me.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this Dictator wine, though, is because of the way that it came about, every decision was voted for by the members.
Yeah.
But it's not the members' wine. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Apart from the blend, which is.
So you are more democratic than dictatorship. Is that right? Yeah.
For now, but our intention is to be fully autocratic and take over the whole process, and not let anybody have a say on anything anymore.
That's a good business model. Just change the name a little bit, and then
No, just for the Dictator wines. Yeah.
So basically, you talk to me about this wine, which is actually brilliant. I really love it. It's an 𝗪𝐼𝐺𝐻. So if anyone knows, it's one of the grape varieties what Portugal is. I don't know. It's almost like a flagship for them, I suppose. And you can call it 𝗪𝐼𝐺𝐻 if you are on the other side of the peninsula. So tell me about the other vintages which you made, because you it's not this is the first vintage, obviously, and I'm very privileged to have it, but you created 2 other vintages in a year. So first of all, people might think, how do you do that? But obviously, Southern Hemisphere, Northern Hemisphere, every 6 months you can create something. How was the other 2 in that case?
Yeah, so the second one, we only did the first one. We didn't have any plans for the future, right? We just wanted to check that it worked and see whether people enjoyed it and whether there was demand for it. So then it was kind of very quickly after that we saw it was successful. We thought, well, let's try and do it again quickly. It went down to Chile in South America, a place called La Despensa Boutique. And they make red wines only. So it was kind of a nice change. Like, you've done a white, let's try and do a red. So that was down in 𝘋𝘪𝘨𝑒. Really cool place, small, like the opposite in terms of a winemaking experience. Like Solero's bigger, all the technology type stuff, like everything is kind of precise and like very scientific in the way they do everything. Whereas in Chile is a bit more touch and feel. You taste the wine, you make decisions based on that. It's a much smaller operation, like tiny in comparison. So it was a completely different experience for our members down in Chile. We made a red. We did the democratic wine again, and then we also did another Dictator wine. This one we knew from the start we were going to do it, so we did just kind of make something we want. We actually put out a fair few of the votes to Instagram, so that did have a democratic element to it. So that's partially Instagram voted for as a wine.
Yes, yeah. I actually tasted a couple of their wines, La Despensa, and they are an English run. An English family, basically.
Exactly.
Who started this, and
he went out, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago now, to South America and kind of never came back. Accidentally fell into winemaking, I think, just by being in real estate and buying a few properties for people, liking the idea of it, and one thing led to another, and now he can't get out of it, and he's just making wine all the time.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, could be a worse life as well. I don't know if you know Garage Wine Company at all.
I know of them. Yeah,
that's a very similar story as well, where a Canadian ski instructor married to a Chilean lady, and they're making garage wines, brilliant quality, brilliant packaging, and brilliant story with it. But anyway, we're here to talk about your wines, not their wines, because they're fairly famous now. So we just want to make you more famous. And obviously, after Chile, you didn't bother really coming back. Well, technically you probably did, but you just straight up north and went to California, right?
Yeah, exactly. And California was always the place I said we'd never do. Obviously, that the cost of production there is a lot higher, and I was trying to keep it affordable and make sure people can sign up and get the concept before we start making expensive wines and things. But yeah, so and that came about again through chance. It was down in Chile, and interestingly, there was a guy who was on a neighboring vineyard who'd come from America, and his winery and accommodation was still being built as he arrived. So he didn't have a kitchen. So he came over basically most nights just looking for food and to barbecue with us. So obviously we became pretty friendly with him. And he was like, I really want to do a harvest in Bordeaux. And I had some friends in Bordeaux. So I set him up with that. And he said, well, now you can have my job if you want. So I then took his job in California and stayed there for a much longer time. So just like 3.5 months there. Yeah. Making all their wines as well. That's kind of the deal. Like we don't just go and make our wine. We tend to, everyone makes all the wines together, but you're I guess responsible for your little corner of the winery and my couple of barrels or so. Yeah, so I went there for 3.5 months and we made vintage 3, which was a Pinot Noir.
And when is that coming along? Do you think is there?
So, well, for both wines, so the Chilean one is going to be bottled pretty soon in February. We're just going to do a bit of fining to it now before bottling, and then I think we're penciled in for April for the bottling of the Pinot Noir. Okay. And then, to be honest, I've no idea how long it takes to ship. Hopefully, less than 6 months, but I don't want to commit to anything because
do you actually have to go back to do the bottling, or is somebody going to do it for you?
Yeah, they'll do it on my behalf for Chile. I might go back for the US, but I can't really justify the cost of the flights to get out there to do that. But it's in good hands. So we'll
just charge it on the members, mate. That's the easiest option. That's it. But,
imagine if I sent an expenses bill to everybody. You signed up for the wine, but that was excluding expenses.
Yes, sorry, I had to travel back to Chile. Also spent 3 months in Chile just looking around, tasting wines, and this is the bill for it. There we go. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I will do that anyway. So, and then obviously you done these. I suppose in many winemakers' dreams, you've done that in pretty much in a year and a half. Basically, you made wine in Europe, you made wine in South America, you made wine in California. I mean, there's obviously a few more places to go, but where to next? That's the question, really.
Yeah, so where to next we know about. We're going to South Africa. I fly out 29th of January, which will be just about when the first grapes are being picked.
I'm just about right time to catch you here. So
yeah, perfect. And we're going to do it with a partner winery this time will be A.A. Badenhorst. So a fairly iconic producer in the Swartland. He do very good Chenin and Old Vine Grenache, Sonso and Shiraz and stuff. So yeah, that's our partner for Vintage 4, which should be pretty exciting.
And I assume you told me in private before that these guys actually, you didn't beg for them. You didn't knock on the door. You didn't offer them free food when they didn't have kitchens and stuff. They actually came about differently.
Oh, no. I begged. I did beg. What happened was there just wasn't a connection this time. So normally there's always been a way in, So obviously with the first one, it was Manuel's family who owned the vineyard. So they were happy to at least talk to us, if not agree to the proposal. Matt from Chile I knew from before. I'd done a harvest out there 5 years ago. And then obviously I told you the story about how we got into Darcy Kent in Livermore, California. But this is the first time where, we hounded them. So we started off with, there was a trade tasting in South Africa, and I got a few of our members. So our members have turned into a little bit of a community. They help me with stuff without any reward, which is really nice. And they went to this South Africa trade tasting because I really wanted to go to South Africa. And I sent them in as kind of agents, and they were like asking people like, oh, would you be interested in making wine? What do you think of this? Have you heard of them? Just planting some seeds. And a few people were like, who might be interested? He's up for these kinds of ventures and excitement and stuff. So I got that intel from them that he might be the type of person who'd be interested. So then I sent a few emails, got some kind of quick replies. Like when you're dealing with someone who's a bit more famous and a bit bigger, they don't quite have the same time as other people to respond. But he kept throwing me little nuggets of approval, saying, "Yeah, it sounds cool. Would be interested." And then I chased him around, hounded him, harassed him for a few months until we eventually got the deal sorted.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice step forward, and I suppose it's another dream for many winemakers, because making wine in South Africa again, you keep ticking these iconic places technically on your well, okay, I wouldn't want to say this, but you are not actually a graduated winemaker, so you just going on a whim here, and then you piling up all these great places where you can make wines, and some of them iconic, some of them are a bit more boutiquey. But obviously, question comes from here is, any other wine regions you want to visit, grape varieties, styles, which you want to do in the future after this trip?
Yeah, and I think that it's kind of the reason that I started this in the first place. It wasn't with the intention of building a business. It was just with a view of, I'm at university for 3 years. I'd quite like to do 6 harvests within that. And this was just like a kind of a way of, how do we fund that and make it happen? Because I think with winemaking, you need to make wines as much as you need to study it. I think, well, maybe it's true of anything, but certainly for me, I came to university quite late for winemaking. So I was in a bit of a rush. I didn't want to do my studies and then do 6 harvests, and for that to take 9 years. I wanted to kind of just do it all in 3. It hasn't quite worked out that, because I went part-time on my studies last year, and then I've paused it for a year just because I don't have the time to focus on it and dedicate myself to the studies. So yeah, the intention was just to do 6 vintages, 3 south, 3 north, try and fund some wine out of it and make my own wine, and just kind of accelerate this learning so that I can become a winemaker as quick as possible. So that was the intention. And then the places just fell into place. And where next? I think certainly Europe. I want to do another European vintage. Also for our members, it's kind of better. So we run school trips every other vintage. So people came out to Portugal. We took about 20 people out there, and you get to visit the winery, try your wine in barrel, make some decisions on the blending in the Portugal case. And then a similar number came out to California, where they tried the wines, because all the wine there is single varietal. It's all Pinot. There wasn't really the same blending opportunity. So we got them to taste the wine and see if they wanted to make any acidity adjustments to it by adding a little tartaric. So that was their fun part of the process of actually tasting and being more hands-on with the winemaking. So with that view, I'd love to do one in Europe, so it's a lot easier for people to get to for that school trip. And then to go a step further, I'd love to do one in England, of course, because then the members can be involved in every step. They if it's not too far away, they can come down and get involved in making it themselves and just be really fully immersed in the whole process. But selfishly, I still want to travel for a few years, so I don't know when the English one will happen.
Yes, I was going to say, actually, obviously England makes sense, because an English company, English wine market is growing rapidly, and it has this momentum at the moment, which I suppose you have to ride the wave a little bit as well, because it does make sense, both financially, I suppose, and in many other ways. That way, the styles coming into play. So obviously England is producing a lot of still wine, but I still think that English winemaking is still more about sparkling, and that's where it has a huge potential. I'm not sure if you agree, but which style would you want to make if you make English wine?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I would love to make sparkling, but that is one of the limitations of how we make wine, is that obviously people pay for it and buy it up front, and they don't receive it until it's ready, which kind of makes sparkling a little bit difficult, especially traditional method, because it could be 3, 4, 5 longer years before people receive the wine. So at the minute, and obviously it's democratic and people get to vote on the wine, but we do limit the options to things that make sense. We don't give people bad options. I think at this stage, it would be kind of a bad option to give people a big tannic, heavy red, which needs 2 years in barrel, 3 years in bottle, and a few years cellaring at home, because then, people don't drink the wine, people don't see it, people don't see what we're about. So it would kind of be hidden. Sparkling kind of falls into that category. So as much as I'd love to make English sparkling and a champagne and everything, because I want to make everything, I think that's some way off. But we have made a slight tweak to our business to try and encourage that to happen. So we've kind of set up a subscription service. It's not like technically a subscription service. It's more like you just put 30 quid in per month into our business, and you end up being automatically signed up to every vintage, and you pay it off over time. But what that allows me to do is you kind of get a sense of the people who are committed for the long term, who love the concept regardless of where we make wine. So at the minute, I think some people sign up because they love a Badenhorst wine, or they want a Californian Pinot, so people are more vintage specific. But if I can get a good crop of people who just love the concept, who are in it and happy trying all sorts of wines, then I'm more willing to do longer term projects with things like with sparkling wines, or even moving further back in the process and giving people a chance to vote on viticulture decisions and things that come a bit earlier. So that's the intention of that subscription service that we do for 30 quid a month, and that you get everything, and it's the cheapest way to get what we do, but it just allows me to plan for the future a little bit more easily.
I think that makes perfect sense. All I can say is I probably have a few good connections in Hungary, so if you ever want to make some Tokaj or something like that, I might be able to help you out.
So the winemaker at 𝘨𝐻𝐶 in California, he was Hungarian as well. And his family are big into winemakers. So maybe I'll link you two together, and you can talk Hungarian stuff.
Brilliant. I used to import wine from Hungary, obviously, so I still have some connections there. So, but nevertheless, I think it's still a possibility for you. And I think I don't know if you taste Hungarian wines generally, or how often that you do that, but there's still plenty of really good potential in dry Furmint and some red varietals as well, plus a few other grape varieties. But again, let's not go into that. What about orange wine as a style?
Yeah, I'd be up for that. It always has to be the right winery to partner with for specific types of wines and specific styles. Because I say, obviously, we as a winemaking business, we don't have our own philosophy. I always like to think we adopt the philosophy of the local producers, because we can't improve upon wines year on year, right? We make it once and then we disappear and go somewhere else. In most cases, there are some exceptions to that, which we're looking to change. But essentially, we can't improve upon our wines. So we're heavily reliant on the local knowledge for what works for them, what works for their grapes in their regions and their styles. So I don't think I'd ever go somewhere that doesn't do an orange wine and try and make an orange wine. It has to be somebody who's a specialist in orange wines, and then we make an orange wine within their parameters of what works. So yeah, I'm definitely keen for an orange wine. Again, it's probably something that's a bit further down the line, because it's a democracy. So like the more edgier types of wines are less likely to win votes. If that makes sense.
I was going to ask if you were to make an orange wine, just as as a winemaker, without the democracy and all that. So you can let's say technically you could create one of these Dictator wines as an orange wine, for example, which would work really well in East London, or actually many parts of the UK now. But what sort of style would that orange wine be? Would it be that like full on in your face, or would that be more as a bit more subtle, where more people can potentially enjoy it as well?
Yeah, I think I'd probably go for the more, personally, I like the more in your face wines, but possibly for a market go a bit more subtle. I guess my overall view on orange wines is that I want it to be from an aromatic variety, and I want it to have some time. I think they're the two biggest things for me, in that you can kind of, in non-aromatic varietals, you tend to lose the flavor of the grape and it just becomes a generic orange wine. I think you do retain some varietal character from the aromatic styles. And then also, like, they are obviously like surprisingly tannic when people drink them, and it's unexpected. So I think a bit of time in bottle kind of softens that edge and rounds out the wine a bit. So they're probably only my two things on a wish list for making an orange wine. But I'd say otherwise, I'd go to the winery and I'd see how they do it and kind of adopt what they do. Like I think, and go to a region as well. You know, like if I was making orange wine, I'd probably be looking at Georgia or possibly even more likely Slovenia. Like I tried a few there in 𝘪𝘨𝐵𝘪𝘁, particularly from Radica, who I love their orange Malvasia. Sorry, no, it's not Malvasia. It's their Pinot Gris. It's phenomenal, and I'd love to make something like that.
Okay, before we go into anything further, I still have another question here because you just mentioned something. I want to get back to that. Let me have my promo again here. Just bear with me for 29 seconds, please.
Hey, it's 𝘱𝐵, the podcast host. And in this 30 seconds video clip, I want to ask you a favor. Please visit 𝘸𝘪𝑒𝑤𝑖𝑛E.club, which is my side hustle, a sustainable fashion brand for wine lovers. We create all these comfy pullovers, hoodies, t-shirts and jumpers for anyone who loves wine or anyone who loves the designs. Please visit and let me know what you think. And let's get back to the podcast right now.
Let's get back to the podcast right now. So my question, just going back very briefly into what you just mentioned earlier, that obviously when you don't have your own sort of style as a company or as a winemaker, because you're adopting other people's methods, and it makes perfect sense, because obviously if you're going to Sicily, it's going to be very different terroir, grape varieties and everything than when you are in wherever in England or wherever else in Greece, for example. But you just sort of hinted something that you wanted to not necessarily disappear from every place, or is that, do you mean that you want to go back and do wines vintage after vintage at certain places, or how is that?
Yeah, a little bit. So none of this is kind of confirmed yet, so it's kind of just ideas. But
Yeah.
I think often when we leave a winery, they kind of want us to stay, and they say, "Can you come back next year and do it again?" And we're like, well, it's not really like I'd love to personally, but we want the experience to be different every 6 months for our members. So we like to travel about and do different things. But there's no reason why we can't make a Dictator wine in a place we've already done a democratic wine, you know? So there's potential that, you know, we might make something with Solera again, because I think when we did the first wine and people went out to taste it, they absolutely loved what was in the chestnut barrel. Like if they could bottle that 100%, they would have done. But there's always like, and this I think what you learn from being part of this process as well, you learn the practicalities of things, right? So we had, you can get maybe 300 bottles out of a barrel, and we'd sold 600. So we couldn't just give the members the chestnut barrel and bottle it. But that got Manuel and I thinking, be like, wouldn't it be great if we could just make a wine that was in the same way that we'd done the previous one, but just 2 chestnut barrels, and make 600 bottles of it and sell it as a Dictator, because it was delicious and we really wanted it. So so that's something that we might do. And similarly with 𝘪𝑒𝐾, we might try and make another wine there next year. So one of my biggest regrets as like an overseer organizer of the decisions was in California. We had a choice between the Pinot Noir and a Cabernet Franc for our reds, in terms of the reds that you could kind of get out quickly, that wouldn't need 5 years. And sorry, just last second. So then when we were making that decision, the Cabernet Franc wasn't ripening. Like it was a really cool season in California, like bizarrely cold. Everything was about a month to 6 weeks later. So I was really nervous that we'd be making this underripe Cabernet Franc. And it's the only time I've ever led the members to say, I really don't think we should do Cabernet Franc. Because normally I just pick 2 options and they're both good. And I actually don't care which way the votes go. I want the votes to be like a challenge so that people can't choose between them. So if I have a favorite, I think that comes across. So for this one, we'd already agreed to do Pinot or Cabernet Franc as red options. And when it came to it, it didn't look like the Cab Franc was going to ripen. So I pushed people towards Pinot. They took the Pinot option, but then it kind of stayed dry as well. So like the longer season wasn't an issue. And basically the Cabernet Francs were delicious. And I apologize to our members for doing that. It was really good, the stuff that they were making. So I'd love to go back to 𝘪𝑒𝐾 and make a Cab Franc, because they're in a place called Livermore, which is a fairly unknown region in California, I'd say, even though it's the closest AVA to San Francisco. And they make really good, great wines, and particularly Cabernet Franc, because it has this character which is unique to the region. It's green, but it's more of a softer resiny flavor, but with all the bright fruit that you get from California, wherever you are. So I really love those Cabernet Francs and would like to make another. So potentially we could make another one with them, with a Dictator. But who the Dictator is TBC.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So, well, would the business have to? Obviously, you don't have to change it completely, but as soon as you start making more of the Dictator wines, first of all, it has to grow with the business itself, because you need the members to actually support you and buy the democratic wines. But as things start to grow, for example, with the Dictator wine, like in restaurants or independent wine merchants, for example, would that need to change the business model as well, very significantly? Would it require more investment, or how would that work for you?
It would require more investment. So the way that we work currently, obviously I was a student when we set this up, and the idea for us, as well as for wineries, was to be kind of financially risk-free. So every time we made a wine, sold a wine to a member, that enabled us to make more ourselves. So basically all the profits from the members' wine go into buying the democratic wine. All the profits from the democratic wine go into making the Dictator wine. So that's how we did it. And if we start to increase the number of Dictator wines that we're making in volumes, there might not be the cash to do that. So it needs some fine tuning as to how it works. Effectively, it just needs me to sell all the Dictator wines to fund future Dictators. But we'll see. It might need some investment.
Keep buying.
It might not.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. The more you buy, the more you get.
Yeah. That's the soft approach to sales. Buy, people, buy.
The Badenhorst vintage 4 from South Africa is available now. It's 200 quid. You get your 6 bottles, which is, I think, the value as well is not just in the wine you get. Like people, I always struggle with people saying 35 pounds a bottle. That can be quite steep, but it's kind of for the experience as well. It's not necessarily about just the wine you get at the end. And I always try and split it in my mind that you get half of the value from the experience, so like the opportunity to vote. And in those emails as well, you get like quite a lot of technical information. I try to, as it was all part of my studying how to make wine, when I come to a decision, I tend to research it, go back through some journals, write down notes, and sort of get it clear in my head first. And I just drop that into the email. So they see a kind of like a university level education piece in there as well. Like it doesn't give you the breadth of university or the everything you need to know, but on each specific decision, you get like a higher level of education that you wouldn't get necessarily from WSET or other providers. It's a different kind. It doesn't have the breadth, which is obviously what WSET does well, but it gives you a lot more depth of knowledge of understanding of the science behind it. So that's part of the value I see in the price, as well as just being part of a community. So like every time people have a vote, I kind of leave in there like a free text box for people to add their comments. So, and then whatever people say, I publish them in the next email, kind of semi-anonymously. And that can be people justifying why they've picked a certain decision. But often it's people just telling me jokes or abusing me for not giving them the decision they wanted. And it all gets published, and it can be a bit of fun. You can see what other people are thinking and how they're enjoying the experience as well. So there's more to it than just the wine. But yeah, £200 for 6 bottles from Badenhorst. It's a bargain.
And let's get back to the podcast right now. Sorry, that was my that was the second promo here, but never mind. It's all good, and it makes perfect sense. I was gonna say before I move on to my next question is something I noticed on your website. There's so much content on there, in terms of how you make this, how to do this, how that, all these sort of things. That is a lot of work just on its own because I'm very much in that sort of space where I work in digital marketing, where content creation is a major part, and I know how much work it is to actually just put all these information into a page or into a site and then do it on social media and all those things. So I think people have to appreciate that as well. It probably doesn't seem to be so obvious to many people, but I think when you consider how much effort it goes into something like this, it's major. So yeah, next vintage is available. Buy it, people. But let's move on to the next question. Is somehow relates to this, because You're probably going to go back to Portugal. You want to go back to the US as well, and then you want to do Europe and all sorts of things. And being a so-called flying winemaker is tough. Obviously, you don't have a child, you don't have dependents, you have a partner, but that's about it. And will you stop being a flying winemaker in the near future, really?
Well, I think definitely not in the near future. Definitely not. Like it, as I say, like the original intention was just for 3 years, nothing longer. But it just kind of worked, and I'm enjoying it, and it's giving me new experiences. So I see no reason to stop. As well as like, I think my priority is for the members and that democratic wine, and it kind of has to be different. It has to give them new experiences. They have to see new places, like virtually travel to, or physically in some cases, to the different places with me. You know, I think that's a lot of the experience, that it's not just the same wine. It kind of has to be different every time. So yeah, I'll be flying about for a while. But as I said earlier, the drawback to this method is that, like, if I was to make a brilliant wine, I don't go back and make it again and improve upon it. So you can't make those incremental improvements or really learn the nuances of winemaking from that perspective. So like at some point you'd like to be able to do that, because I think every winemaker just wants to make the best wine they can. And I feel like I need to be in a single place to really improve on each vintage to do that. So maybe one day, but for now it's too much fun.
If you stop being a flying winemaker, will you reside in the UK, or would you have a place where you really want to live and make wine? Is there a specific spot on the globe somewhere?
Possibly the UK and possibly London. I do love the idea of being an urban winery. Like, I think I enjoy living in bigger cities. I would find the rural nature of vineyards kind of a little bit quiet for me. So like an urban winery in London would be ideal. I'd love to do something like that one day.
Okay, well, you're just popping these questions up in my mind. If you do an urban winery, where would you source the grapes? Would you do a bit of that sort of thing, Sussex, Essex, wherever? Or would you do more of a renegade style where you bring it in from wherever, Germany or Italy or whatever they do, Portugal, actually?
Yeah, I think I'd focus on the UK to begin with. I think it's not like disastrous, but the travel of grapes certainly doesn't improve a wine. So I'd be tempted to stay locally to begin with. But again, like the renegade model, where you get that variety of different wines to make and trying different things, is exciting, you know. And I'd love to be a part of that. You know, maybe I'd get bored of making similar kind of high acid, refreshing wines from the UK if that was all I did. So yeah, I'd be open to anything. I can never give you a straight answer or anything, kind of like in terms of varieties and places and styles. So I just want to do everything. Like, I'm still a student, so I want to practice, try, learn. The more things, the better for me.
Towards the end of this, as we're progressing with this podcast, I think I start to get the sense of you a little bit more, in a way that you just avoiding questions like a politician would be in a democracy, and then you making things exactly like a dictator. So you just come up with an idea and you do it. So like, I get it now. Sorry. Yeah. I think you need some sort of a parliament or something around you to sort of control you in many ways, because it's difficult.
It could be. And so part of the subscription service that we're doing is, obviously there's a smaller people who get involved in the subscription and people who want to just buy vintage. And that sort of inner circle of people have a much bigger say on things that happen for not yet named. Less so on the wine, to be fair, but more on like projects that we do, because we've got a few other interesting things coming up this year, potentially sort of partnerships with people, and potentially something on label design and getting some artists involved. So, you know, there's other things that our subscribers can get involved in beyond just the winemaking part of it, of being vintage to vintage. But yeah, I agree. I do need some more control over me, people who can to rein it in when I start doing wild things.
I suppose at the moment there's only one person who is somewhere in the room. I suppose it's your girlfriend who is saying no to certain things. And
no, she's worse. She'd be like, do more, be more exciting, do something different. Yeah. She loves to travel as well, and always comes out and sees me in places, and yeah, she's all over the place as well. So Yeah.
There's this saying about, every great man has a woman and whatever, that's probably true for
Yeah,
your
she's
case
great.
as
And
well.
as a shout out for her, she pushed me to do it. So I had a different job 3 years ago, and I worked in sort of financial services and consulting for 8 years. And she's the one who pushed me into actually giving it a go. She said, just go and make wine, just do it. That's what you want to do. So yeah, that's the biggest influence on me. Certainly, she is.
What she didn't realize, though, if you work in finance, you could earn a small fortune, and then you go into wine where you can spend your small fortunes. Anyway, on a more serious, I don't know if it's more serious subject, but we had a question because I put up a little poll on Instagram the other day, and I wanted to see if anyone wanted to ask you a question. So I think you got your question from an actual winemaker, who actually graduated, all the things which you didn't do. But let's go with this one. Define light filtration, and it's, if you want to know, I think it's from Fergus Elias, the winemaker of Balfour. So there we go. In the meantime, I'll pour some more of your wines into my glass and enjoy.
You can taste that light filtration. So I think I know where the question would have come from. And obviously, Fergus is an amazing winemaker, right? His wine's brilliant. He makes a lot of experience, and he's putting me on the spot here, like really pushing me. But on the bottle you've got there, you can see all the decisions that we made for the wine are written. Yeah, so you can see each one that we made is on there. Just to give people an example of like an idea of what we do as a company. So these are the things that you can kind of vote for when making a wine. And when it came to light filtration, it was just our way of describing the options to our members. There was a lighter option and a heavier option. And it's all detailed in the email that we write to them, which for the vintage one is published on our website as well. So you can see all the full technical details behind it. But I think, and obviously I wasn't there to do it because we'd left the point when the filtration happened. But I think it's through the size of the filters that went on the filtration in the crossflow filter. It was in the pad filter. It was either an EK level or a 250. And we chose
and don't worry about the boredness here, because nobody's watching at this point, so it's okay. You can go technical as much as you want.
Yeah, so it's just the size of the filter that we use to push the wine through. So we wanted the wine to be stable, so we actually didn't offer no filtration to our members, because I think we always try and give always has to be good options, and from our very first wine to come over and be unstable and be cloudy would kind of be a disaster. It's the first thing that people have bought, and even some people at that point had bought for the Chilean vintage before receiving the first one, right? So you can imagine what they'd be thinking if we delivered a faulty wine and they've got another 6 that are coming later. So we we didn't offer filtration. We said we will be filtering the wine, but to what level we do it became an option. Tough question from Ferg. You put me on the spot.
I think he's going to be happy for this. I think he's going to be the only person who is watching or listening at this stage, because obviously no one else cares about these sort of things, and you can read that on your website as well if somebody really wants this. So, but yeah, I love the idea, and if somebody didn't hear about you yet, I hope they will, because it's a brilliant idea. I think it makes perfect sense. I don't know if it makes financial sense for you. I hope it will. And I just do hope that the community will grow, and, you're doing something great. I really appreciate your time, and hope that the company goes step by step moving forward as you want. And looking forward to more of the Dictator wines as well, because, don't trust people, honestly. Just do what you want to do, and then no, I'm just joking. But hopefully it will be a good fun project for a few more years to come, and see where you end up making wine in an urban winery in London, or some godforsaken place down in middle of Chile where nobody goes to, just winemakers. Hopefully it's going to be a good place.
Well, and I hope you enjoy the edition one that you're tasting there. And you never know, there might be some not yet named merchandise coming through Daddy Wine Club in the future as well.
Yes, exactly. That's a well spotted place where you can actually. We are 53 minutes in the podcast. Obviously, nobody's listening, but if you do, daddywine.club, and we're probably going to do some good merchandise for not yet named wine company. I don't know how we're going to fit all this into one merchandise because it's so long still, but nevertheless, we'll try.
Yeah, only available in extra large.
Yes, exactly. You need a big bag to put all this on. Anyway, Alex, really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you very much.
No, good to chat to you too.
Thank you very much, guys. And I'll see you guys later.